Hello there everybody, good morning. It's Jessie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff here on Flosstube, and I am here with a weekly update. A little bit more than a week, but that's okay, not a big deal. Yeah, like I said, good morning. I'm not usually filming this early in the morning, it's about 9 o'clock. But if I don't film now, then I'm not going to film this week, and I'm trying to get back on this schedule, as I've said for months. So I'm trying to get back on the schedule, so I'm going to film now, and it will be great. I've got a lot of work to do, both work as well as housework, because as I've said 5 or 6 times in the last few videos, we've got Clemson this weekend. And so we are headed down to Blacksburg early tomorrow afternoon. Then we have the big game on Saturday night. So I've got some house things to get in order before we can go down. So yeah, so filming now. And I've got my coffee in tow. Danny always makes my coffee in the mornings. Such a sweet man. He doesn't drink coffee, fun fact. But he makes my coffee for me. And this morning he was like, if you're going to film this morning, I'm just going to prep it, but you have to start it. I was like, okay, thank you. So sweet. So got my coffee and ready to get going. So before I get into things, one thing that I did want to address, and I hadn't talked about it previously on my channel, but I think that it's probably necessary that I do. I made the executive decision to not attend the Flosstube retreat. And that was it was a really difficult decision. Basically, it boils down to there are some things that I want in my personal life, and the Flosstube retreat, it was one or the other. It's kind of what it boils down to. It was one or the other. And like there's no easy route. There's no easy way to go about it. I had to pick one. And these in my personal life, it's been something I've wanted for a very long time, and so it's tough. Real talk, I've tried to say this 4 or 5 times, and I've either dissolved into tears or just stumbled through my words. So we're just going to stick with this one and go with it. Maybe you'll never see this, but anyway. So yeah, it was a really tough decision. Emailing Julia, I felt really crappy about it. But yeah, I had to make that decision. And hopefully there will be more. Hopefully this will be a swimming success, and I'll be able to go in the years to come. I'm really bummed that I'm not going to get a chance to meet everybody. It sucks, to put it lightly. But sometimes, we have to do the adult thing, and we have to weigh the options. So that's what I did. They say that when you're faced with a decision, imagine yourself taking the options. Imagine yourself if you took option A or option B, or as the case may be, C, D, through the rest of the alphabet. And assess how you feel about having to make that decision. You can go so far as to role play it out, or write the email that's difficult to write, or what have you. And generally speaking, if you feel good about one of the options, that's the right decision to make. So I did that, and I felt crappy about both. If I go, I lose out on this thing. If I get this thing, I lose out on the Flosstube retreat. So there was no winning formula for me. If I could win the lottery, then I could have it all. But that's just not the reality of the situation. So there's that. So, not going to the retreat, it got a little bit easier after I emailed Julia. It got a little bit easier after the fact. And now it's starting to get harder again because I'm watching these videos of everybody that's going and everybody's talking about their excitement and prepping on what they're going to bring, and I'm missing out, and ugh, I don't like it. But I have to be okay with it. So anyway, before I harp on that for too much longer, I have stitchy stuff to talk about today. So I have like 1,000,001 questions to go over, and that's not that bad. I have projects that I have worked on. I have my plans for these last few days of September, and then I'm going to talk to you about the projects I'm going to work on in October. I also have some retail therapy purchases, whatever you want to call it. I do not have any books, and I have one small thing to talk about with knitting. And that is the thing that I was wearing last week. So I've shown this before on my videos, but I'll talk about it again. This is because several people asked me, what is that, and what's the yarn? So this is the Star Shower cowl. It is a cowl. It's connected in the round, so it's knit in the round. But it is also a scowl because it looks like a shawl. It's just that you don't have to worry about the ends falling off because it's all connected, which is really quite genius because I like the look of being able to wear a shawl, but sometimes it's not worth fuddling with trying to get the ends to stay on your neck. Anyway, so the design is by Hilary Smith Calais, or Callis, I'm not entirely sure on the pronunciation, and I've said that before. The yarn that I used is, it is Blue Moon Fiber Arts, Socks That Rock Lightweight, and the colorway is Willapa Bay. And it's this beautiful dark blues and scummy greens and the prettiest turquoisey blues. Yeah, I really love this colorway. So I knit this a couple years ago, and it's really cool construction. It starts out as just a basic shawl. So you start at the top here, and then once you reach a certain size, then you join it, and then knit in the round for the rest. So it's really cool. Lots of fun to knit, and quick knit too. Really quick knit. Great for gift knitting, especially if you've got one skein of like a highly variated yarn. This is a really good one because it only uses one skein. I had gobs left over after this, and that's because the Blue Moon Fiber Arts Socks That Rock Lightweight is a big put up. It's like 470 something yards, I think. And I knit to the pattern. I didn't extend it or anything. So anyway, so there's that. So I wore that last week, and I had several questions about it. So I just want to make sure I talk to you about that. Okay, let me pull over my notes here, and we'll get to these questions. Okay, so I'm just going to be referring down, looking at these. So the first question comes from Flissy Fish, who's Felicity here on Flosstube. And she asks a couple of questions. So the first one is with regards to stitching skin 1/1. And she is working on her Roses of Provence. She thinks that she wants to do the skin 1/1, but she has some questions on what to do with regards to the blended threads and also what to do with the quarter stitches, the fractionals. Okay, so this is my approach with the quarter stitches. So take this with a grain of salt. It totally depends on you and your style and what your plan of attack is, so to speak, with quarter stitches. So I'm going to insert a picture here that I got from Peacock and Fig that talks about the different stitches, and in the bottom right corner, I'm going to zoom in on that. it shows 4 different colors of quarter stitches all coming together. This is really important because this is how I attack fractionals. I don't hardly ever do 3/4 stitches. Not hardly ever. Even if I'm stitching 2/2, I don't do 3/4. Here's why. You guys remember in my Know Your Needleworker tag where you had to pick that word that best describes you? I picked indecisive because I'm indecisive. And so with 3/4 stitches, a lot of times you have to decide what is the more dominant color. So what I am more inclined to do is I will stitch 1/4 stitch in one color, 1/4 stitch in the other. And then more likely than not, there's a back stitch line coming through anyway, so that totally gets rid of any decision making as far as that's concerned. So if I am stitching a Mira's skin 1/1 and I run into a 3/4 stitch, let's say on the outline of her face, and I know that particularly in their nose, if the face is in profile and you see their nose, Nora tends to use quarter stitches or fractionals to get down the bridge of her nose so that it's a smooth transition. So what I am inclined to do is, if it shows a quarter stitch there, I will typically only do 1 stitch in the corner that makes sense. So if we have a 3/4 stitch where, let's say in that example, the red quarter stitch there is where that 3/4 stitch is indicated on the chart. This is going to sound dizzying, but I'll only put 1 cross there, 1 teeny tiny little one. Sometimes I will do 3 out of the 4, so you know that 1 charted skin stitch translates to 4 1/1 stitches. Sometimes I will do 3 out of the 4 if it makes the transition look a little bit smoother. But that is totally dependent on my mood and how I'm feeling that the lines are going for the skin. I hope that that's making sense. That's generally speaking what I do. Also, if the skin is intersecting with clothing, so I remember on Persephone's neckline, sometimes the skin would, especially in her chest area where the bodice of her dress came up, there would be quarter stitches or fractionals involved there. So what I would do there is I would actually do the 1/1 stitch for the skin, and I would do a 3/4 stitch for the clothes, the 2/2 portions. So I would do the 3/4 stitch like that. And the reason for that is that one of the appeals to me for 1/1 skin is that it looks like they're wearing their clothes. There's some dimension involved. And so by doing a 3/4 stitch, you get that extra thread or fabric going over the skin. That just makes sense to me. So it still looks like it's being worn. And if I'm able to, I will take a picture of Persephone. I'll zoom in on a part of it, and I'll show you that. I'll stick that in here somewhere. So that's kind of how I approach things. I hope that that helps. I'm sure that there are some people that will choose a more dominant color, but I don't do that. Not hardly ever. Okay, and then she also asked about the blended threads for skin. So a lot of times Mira's, they'll have blended skin tones to help the transitions a little bit, so that it's not so shocking between the darker shades and the lighter shades. Fun fact, of all of the skin that I have stitched so far, I have not run into that once. Gigi, Santa I stitched 2/2, so who knows. Persephone, and all of the skin that I have done otherwise on these other projects that I've started, none of this skin blending. So the information that I'm going to shed here is just what I've seen. So you have 3 options if you're dealing with blended threads in stitching 1/1. You can use one thread of one shade and make all your half crosses in one direction, and then use the other shade to cross them. And so you get that effect of seeing both. And then I think that this is what Carolyn Mazzio ultimately decided. She talked at length about this for her Mermaid of Atlantis, so I'm going to link her video down below. But, and I don't know if it was her or Amanda, Mrs. Milky Bar Kid. I don't remember who it was. But somebody mentioned that because the stitches are so small, you can't see whatever that bottom thread is anyway. It doesn't have any effect whatsoever on what that top thread is because they're just small little bubbles. It's effectively what they boil down to. So it's almost not worth the effort of making sure that you're getting one thread on the bottom and one thread on the top. Take that with a grain of salt. So you can choose a shade. So you can carry the darker shade up a little bit more and the lighter shade down a little bit more and meet somewhere in the middle so that there's transition or something. You can do that. Persephone, with the way that her face is done, the pink tones in her cheeks are almost checkerboarded in her cheek so that it's not like this pink spot, but there's like shaded pink in her cheeks. So that's an option. Just try to blend them in almost like a zipper kind of a thing. So you've got one piece over here, and they come together, interlocking, something like that. And then there's a third option that is kind of, I don't want to say that it's new, but it's definitely new to me. And that is 2/1 tent stitch or half cross for stitching skin over one. This is my opinion, okay? I don't care for tent stitch, personally. I don't care for it. I don't care for it in my full coverage designs. I don't care for it in the skin. It's not my aesthetic. No, not a fan. So, but this is an option for dealing with the blended threads because you can get both of those shades in there. So if you are willing to try this 2/1 tent stitch, and plenty of people have done it, and you can't tell the difference because, again, they are so small. Go for it because that, again, will give you that easy shade transition. Something to consider. Okay. I hope that answers your questions. If anybody else has any questions about the skin 1/1, I am going to refer you to that Carolyn Mazzio video where she talks about it because she's just so darn good at explaining things. But if you've got any specific questions that you want to ask me, go for it. Okay, and then she asks a question about yarn. Felicity asked, she says that the yarn that her mom uses, which is from Bendigo Woolen Mills, which is an Australian distributor, dyer, mill, I think even breeder. She says that that's really itchy, and so as a consequence, she doesn't wear anything that her mom has knit. So she's kind of asking for some options of things that don't itch so much. And so I did some very basic, very quick research on Bendigo Woolen Mills because I don't know it. I know that Aish from Sticky Stitch, who is also in Australia, she talks about Bendigo Woolen Mills. But I don't know anything about their sheep or their fiber or their product. What I found is that the fiber that they use is from an Australian sheep breed, and it doesn't get much more specific than that. It just says that they use local Australian sheep. Okay, so what I'm taking from that is that perhaps it's the breed of sheep and they just produce an itchier fiber. Maybe that's it. Some people are more sensitive to itchy fibers than others. Now I'm going to mention 3 fibers that I have used in the past that are very soft. But I want to emphasize the point that not all are created equal. There are a lot of variables that lead to yarns being soft. How the sheep is raised. I bet it even might come down to their diet, where they're raised, how they're shorn, how the wool is harvested, taken. You know what I mean. How it's milled, how it's spun, the dye process, how much it's handled by human hands versus machine. So many things can go into this. What else is in that yarn that might change the fiber content? So I'm going to mention 3 that I have come into contact that are pretty decent fiber blends or fiber types in blends that work for me. So, merino. Merino is a breed of sheep, very common, very cost effective. Most dyers use merino, if I'm totally honest. Also, a little bit higher end here, but cashmere and silk are both very soft fibers. Silk has a sheen, but it is slippery, and so it's soft. It's not a hairy fiber type. And cashmere, everybody knows cashmere. Everybody knows cashmere. It's super soft. And so take that information and run with it. I have to say, you guys, I am not an expert on fiber types. I don't know enough. So that's just all based on my experiences. I knit with a ton of merino because it's so common. Okay, then she asks what the difference is between the different blends, weights, plies, and if I'm totally honest, I'm not even touching that subject. Number one, I don't know enough, and number 2, that's a very lengthy discussion. In fact, this question is the whole reason that I didn't do Q&A last week, because I went off on a tangent for a good 45 minutes trying to answer this question. And that's not where your time is best used. There are much better explainers out there in the world. And so I did just a basic YouTube search, different plies and weights of yarn, and I'll even link that search down below. So click on that and it will pull up a whole host of videos. I tried to look and see if Dr. Christine Kelly from U University had anything, because she's a really great explainer. But I didn't see anything in her backlog of videos where she talks about weights and plies and blends. But there's a ton of videos under this search. So I'm going to link that below. Click on that and watch one of those, and they'll talk about everything that you need to know. It's a really big question. So there's that. Okay, thank you, Felicity, for giving me a whole lot to talk about. And I hope that I was able to answer some of your questions. And yeah. Okay, next I have an older question from Lisa B. And she asks, approximately how many new projects do you kit up each year? So I kit up as I go. If I am going to make a new start, then I'll kit up a project. I don't typically plan out at the beginning of the year, okay, I'm going to have 15 new starts this year and that's it. It's just kind of as I go. So for instance, this year I think I've kitted up 28 projects of my own. In 2016 I think I kitted up 40. But that's because I had 36 no, I guess it was way more than 40. Because I had 36 starts in Mania. Wow. Anyway, that's some introspection I don't need to go down. So yeah, it just all depends on the year and how I feel about starting things. I have a few things left to kit up for this year, but not a whole lot. I don't think I'm gonna crest over 30 new starts this year, unless I already have. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So there's that. Sarah Richards asks, how do you find the time to stitch and to knit? And this is a really hard question to answer for me, if I'm honest. Sometimes I feel like knitting. Sometimes I feel like stitching. Sometimes I feel like reading. I don't schedule out, okay, on Tuesday I'm going to spend 2 hours stitching and 1 hour knitting. It's all dependent on my mood. I can't tell you the last day that I knit. I might have put in 2 rows yesterday. But like knitting is not, it's not something I schedule out. It's just kind of when I feel like it. If I'm totally honest, I am pulling back the reins on the knitting right now because I am going to attempt this Speedy Crafter badge again next week. And so on Sunday I'm casting something on, and I hope to finish it up in 7 days. It is a gift for somebody who might see this, so I am not going to share it until it is done and received, and I'm going to take some pictures throughout the day so that you guys can see the progress of it as we go along. So I'll share that after it's been received, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get it done. I've set some milestones to reach every day so that I can do that. So Sarah also is looking into getting into sock knitting, and she wanted to know what the sock yarn was that I was using when I was knitting my failed socks back in, I don't even remember when that was, I guess March, April, and that was Sweet Georgia Tough Love Sock, and this is hand-dyed in Canada, so this is a Canadian brand, and Tough Love Sock is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon. And so Sarah's concern is that she doesn't think that she could get this in the UK because she's based in the UK, but she thinks that she could probably find something to substitute for it. And Sweet Georgia is available in the UK at some of the yarn shops. I think that Loop London has Sweet Georgia. I could be mistaken, but there are also some online yarn shops you can purchase from who will provide Tough Love socks. So if this is a brand that you are interested in trying, go for it. If you are interested in UK-based dyers, non-commercial brands, Etsy. Etsy is your resource. I have, that I can think of, one skein in my stash from a UK dyer, and I ordered it from her Etsy shop years ago. And so I'm going to show it to you, and this is a fabulous dyer. Truly, if you are looking for UK-based dyer, this is a good one. This is Hedgerow Yarns, and let me see if her label says, no, it doesn't say where she's based, but she is in the UK. And so on the back there it says hedgerowyarns.co.uk. Jane is phenomenal. So this is her Tweedy sock base, which is, it's 100 grams of a 4-ply sock base, 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal neps. And what that means is you see the spots, the Tweedy bits, as it's called, that's the Donegal tweed. This is a beautiful yarn. This is 437 yards, and it is Cornish Landscape is the name of the colorway. Is that not gorgeous? Seriously, I'm in love with this. So this is an option for you if you are looking for an independent dyer based in the UK. And she is still dyeing, even though I bought this oh gosh, it must have been 4 years ago, maybe 3. Yeah, long time ago. I was collecting sock yarn for a long time because I thought I was going to become the next sock knitter. Anyway, another one that I found, I searched on Etsy. You can search by shop location on Etsy. And I found another one that I have heard of before. Mothy and the Squid is a UK dyer, independent dyer. If you are looking for a resource of independent dyers, watch some of the UK podcasters. I'm trying to think of a couple. Helen Stewart from Curious Handmade. She talks about a lot of local yarn dyers. Who else? Inside Number 23 with KT. She is either just outside of London or somewhere in that region of Great Britain. She would be a really great resource. Now, I haven't watched her podcast in a while because I haven't watched any knitting podcasts in a while, but that would be a really great resource. If anybody else knows of some really excellent... how about Tina from Simply in Stitches here on Flosstube? She's a UK-based knitter. She might know some independent dyers worth checking out. So if anybody else, and Stitching Joanne, all of these names are popping in my head. If anybody else knows of any independent yarn dyers that dye sock wool, let me know in the comments, and then I will attach those links into my description box so that Sarah and other UK knitters can check that out. We'll crowdsource some information here. Okay. Louise Brandreth asks if I could do a flip through of Jane Netley Mayhew's cross-stitch safari book. And I am going to hold off on that. I will do that next time. But here's the thing. I believe that Carolyn Mazzio and Letitia from the Crafty Curator both already did flip throughs of this book, if not somebody else. And so I am going to see if I can find their videos and link those down below, so that way I'm not repeating what somebody else has already said. So either of those two things will happen. Next, Ida Ariella asks, where did you find a yard of vintage country mocha? And this is kind of funny. So last time I talked about vintage country mocha and how I was going to use that for my 2 Hakron Hollow pieces. And you can get a yard of vintage country mocha from 123 Stitch. Now, Ida, I know that you are in Israel, and so that comes with its own caveats, shall we say. But here's the thing, and I did not know this. Vintage country mocha is available in all counts except 40. So ranging from 14 to 36 count, it is called vintage country mocha. When you hit 40, you drop the vintage. It's no longer vintage at that point. No idea what that's about. So I was able to order country mocha from 123 Stitch. And 123 has the range, pretty much. So that's the resource that I know of. Okay. Let's see. Threads All Over and Emily R. They both had a suggestion for the Afterthought Lifeline, but for my dockside. And number one, thank you both for mentioning that. I had never heard of it. I love Very Pink Knits. She's a fantastic resource for techniques and things. I had never heard of that. But I kind of like the idea of mine being even bigger. I know that sounds excessive because it's already huge and it's not even blocked out yet. But I kind of like the idea of throwing in an extra 200 yards and having this schlanket, huge, squishy goodness. I knit another pattern by Alicia Plummer a few years ago called the Shaw Hill, and I call that my giant orange squishy. So I might as well have a giant brown squishy. So I'm just going to order another skein, and mine will just be bigger, and I'm okay with that. Really okay with that. But I am going to look up that Afterthought Lifeline, because that would have saved me on my sock. Yeah, should have done that. Anyway, okay. The last question that I have here, also knitting related, comes from Andrea. One day I'm going to get that right on the first try, Andrea. From I Heart Cross Stitch. And she wants to know where I buy my yarn. So there are 3 primary locations, and it is not inclusive. So I've got yarn from other places, but these are the 3 that I primarily go to. So the first is Eat Sleep Knit, based in Dallas, Georgia. Before I've said that they were in Smyrna, but they have recently moved to Dallas, Georgia. And I would say 75% of my stash is from them. They have a really great rewards program, and they have a great list of dyers and exclusive colorways and all sorts of fun perks and things from buying from them. I also purchase from Etsy, so from the individual dyers who are based on Etsy. And I have made purchases from the Loopy U, which is another shop, online shop, based in Colorado. And I do not remember the city. I haven't purchased a lot from them as of late. But again, another wide variety of dyers and bases and colorways, and some exclusives that you can't get elsewhere. This year, and I think last year too, they had an exclusive colorway from Blue Moon Fiber Arts every month, which is kind of cool. That's something that I would like to collect, because the hoarder in me is just loving that. But yeah, I haven't done that this year because I have wanted to, as I talked about last time, whip down and also stash down, use what I've got, because I've got some gorgeous yarns in my stash, y'all. If I ever get it cleaned up in there, I would maybe take you on a tour of my stash, because it's fun to look at all of the wool piggery that I've participated in over the years. But that's for another time. So everybody, thank you all so much for your questions. That is all of them. We're about 40 minutes in here, and I probably should start showing some stitchy things. If you've got questions, by all means, feel free to leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to get to them next time. I think that I might be changing the way that I do Q&A from here on out. And I think that I'm going to answer those questions that are more personal in the comments, and try to save the ones that most people might have questions about for the videos. Yeah, I'm going to try to do that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so let's start talking about stitching things, and we'll talk about what I've worked on in the last week. More than I thought that I would have, if I'm totally honest. So, last Wednesday I was working on Electra by Nora Corbett for On Wednesdays We Stitch Black, and I didn't make any more progress on that because I spent the rest of the day trying to get the video uploaded. It was more of a struggle than it should have been. So I didn't stitch on that anymore. The next day was the 21st, Thursday the 21st, and that was the kickoff for the Full Coverage Fanatics group run by Ann P. So the first challenge was September starts, and so start a something or several somethings. So I went with my planned start. In Bridge Where She Waits by Stephanie Pomonla. All of these needle minders here. Just a hodgepodge of things. Coffee mug, teeny tiny dragon, because I like to have a small and I might as well have a dragon on this, and bird and bird cage from No Name Needle Minders, because I like to have a either an agate slice or a No Name Needle Minders for holding my threads out of the way, because you see how much space there is? Yeah, it's great for holding threads out of the way. Okay, so I started, where am I going to put things? Okay, so I started this on Thursday, and I know you're all wondering, Jess, did you get that page done? Well, of course I didn't get the page done. I got hardly anything done, if I'm honest. So I started it on 25 count, easy count, in antique white from Zweigart. And yeah, I got 400 stitches and then some, a little bit more done. And that took 2 days, if you can believe it. So here's my issue. This top corner, these first 600 stitches in this corner, so the 4 blocks I have done, and then this one that I'm partially the way done, and then this one down here. It's just background. And it's just, you know, dark shades of purple. It's not confetti. It's not difficult. Here, let me show you. So in that corner there, just that top corner, this design has 40 colors in all, which is unusual for a Haid, but this was back in 2005 when this was originally charted. So it's on the smaller side of a full-size Haid, and it only uses 40 colors. So there's not a whole lot of confetti. It's just background. Besides, anyway, so there are 4 or 5 colors in there. Not bad. But the 3 symbols in particular that I'm thinking of look so much like each other. There is the flower that is got the black petals but the open circle center. There is the black circle with the negative space 8 in the center. And there is the black circle with the negative space dash in the center. And so when I'm trying to navigate this, it all looks like black circle with some white negative space in the center. And so it got to be a little bit tedious. And if I'm, well, I'll talk about that a little bit later. So yeah, I didn't put up with that for very long. Then on Friday the 22nd, that is when Danny left to go to Blacksburg for the ODU game. And like I talked about last time, I didn't go to that game, and as Danny told me, yeah, really good idea that you didn't, because it was super hot. Because of course. So I'm like feeling some type of way about Danny going out of town without me and him traveling. Get more into that later. And, you know, feeling kind of bummed out because I'm missing the game. So I was like, I'm not feeling like battling with this pattern. I have 140 stitches left to try to get out of that section of it. I just didn't feel like it anymore. And a part of me thinks that it has to do with I just didn't feel like stitching on full coverage. And so when it reached Friday afternoon and I was thinking about what I was going to work on at the weekend, I was kind of waiting to see if we were going to have a stitch-a-thon weekend. And we didn't. There was no stitch-a-thon weekend. If there was, then I would have soldiered on and pulled out Faces of Fairy. But I didn't feel like it. So I instead pulled out Pumpkin Patch Farm by the Victoria Sampler. This gorgeousness. Let me zoom in a little bit. And I thought to myself, all right, I have the whole weekend to myself. The game is not, it's not on TV. You can only watch it streamed online. So that's perfect because that means that I can stay in my stitching spot and watch. And so we'll see what I can do. I mean, I had that, so you'll be seeing a preview here of what this looked like when I started working on it on Friday. I had the whole barn to do. I had basically 90% of band 10 and then all of band 11 and 12. And 11 and 12 are these two down here. I had a lot of work left to do. but I finished it. So let me go ahead and pull this out. So, well, there we go. So, finished up my pumpkin patch farm. So, I'm going to scan upwards, and then I'm going to talk about finishing this thing. It was a drama. I'm not going to lie. We had drama, this project and I. From the start, fabric is 32 count Belfast in Winter Moon, I think. So, yeah. Finished up those bottom two bands. Okay, so let's talk about this. I got up super early on Sunday, and I had a little bit left to do in the greenery on the bottom of band 10, and then I had bands 11 and 12 to go. Got up super early. I was like, all right, today's the day. I'm going to finish this thing today. Danny's heading home Sunday morning. He usually leaves Blacksburg around 9 in the morning, and he usually gets home between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. So I thought, well, I got up really early. I'm going to get this thing done before he even gets home. So stitching went really well. I had a couple snafus there at the end, but nothing major. And I was just getting ready to thread my needle to do my signature. I was effectively done. I was getting ready to thread my needle to do my signature and take pictures and share it all over social media and, you know, that hoopla. And I get a phone call from my husband on his way home from Blacksburg. Hey, honey, I'm okay, but I have no brakes in my car. So you can imagine, anxious me, cue the panic. What do you mean you have no brakes? He's driving on I-81, Sunday traffic. I-81 is, it is a main vein from the northeast to the southeast. Like, it's a major trucking highway, especially in the area that he was. Like, you guys know, just a real quick anecdote here. You're learning how to drive. Your driving instructor takes you out on an expressway so that you get the feel of the pace and how things go. Nobody takes their student drivers out on I-81 because it's nuts. I mean, it's truckers galore and, you know, it's I-81. And he has no brakes. So here's what happened. And he got super lucky. I mean, guardian angel riding along with him. Everything was going fine. He's rolling down the road. Traffic backing up a little bit ahead of him, so he goes to hit the brakes, and he's kind of starting to slow down, and then all of a sudden his brake pedal goes to the floor without stopping. And so I don't know how it worked out, but he was able to get into the margin. The margin was wide enough for his 2006 Dodge Magnum, which is, I mean, it's basically like an overgrown, it's like a Batman station wagon kind of looking thing. Manages to get into the margin to then coast until his car finally comes to a stop of its own volition. So he got really lucky because, I mean, it could have gone any number of ways where people could have been really hurt. And he was okay, and nobody was hurt in the process. So, just about to thread my needle to do my signature, and I gotta get in my car, and I have to drive 2 hours out of the way to go pick him up because he called his insurance, and they came and got his car and took it to a shop that was local, and so I had to go get him. But, like, I was at the end. And then 4 or 5 hours of my day were just gone. So, yeah. But blessings counted, and whoever his guardian angel is, I owe them a lifetime of gratitude. So, yeah. So, this project that has been a thread drama from the start became a real life drama there at the end. So I'm going to talk about this thread drama thing a little bit. Number one, because somebody asked me about my opinions on the accessory pack. They asked me on Facebook when I shared my finish of it. And also because this question has come up a lot over the 2 years that it took me to finish this thing. And so I'm going to talk about it real quick. So I ordered the accessory pack. And by and large, I think that the accessory pack is a really, really reasonable thing if you want to stitch it in silks. Because the entire project is stitched out of silks, and it is NPIs, Glorianas, Dinky Dyes, and Krennic Silk Moris. And that was with this one. I don't know what the rest of them are, but that was what this was. There was not a single DMC in this whole thing. And there's a lot of them, as you can see. Okay, so when you buy the accessory pack, you don't get a full skein necessarily. You get enough to accomplish the project as it is called for. Okay, so problem number one that I ran into. There are 2 shades of olive green by Krennic Silk Mori that are called for. There is olive green medium and olive green dark. And so my accessory pack ultimately came with 0 olive green medium, and it came with twice as much dark as I needed. This is an exorbitant amount of leftovers. And there's more there on the other side. Okay, so problem number one, I didn't have this grain. Fortunately, Krennic Silk Mori, not an unreasonable thread. It's really kind of cheap as far as silks are concerned. It's not my favorite thing to work with, but it does the job. So I had to order a whole skein. And so I have a whole skein of olive green medium, and I have no idea how else I'm going to use it. So there's that. But again, not a big deal. Packaging error, it's okay. Okay. Next became the bane of my existence. I've said that several times on my channel over the years, but this was a struggle. So there is a gorgeous Gloriana called for, and it is used primarily in the leaves on the trees. So you see the leaves on this tree here, and then again on this tree here. And those leaves, they're maple leaves, and they are stitched 1/1. And so you don't get a whole lot of this thread because it's primarily the only place that it's used. So the color that is called for is Gloriana number 112 Harvest Grape. And I'm just going to show you guys the length that I got. So it has some really gorgeous golds and oranges and yellows in there. And then it also has blue and purple. And like, not just like, it's kind of purpley, but like right in that region, it's purple. This thing is a rainbow. Harvest Grape is a rainbow. And could I have fussy cut it? That's been one of the biggest questions. So if I had fussy cut it, then I probably would have included some of the green, and then the yellow and the orange and the red. So what we have here is maybe a foot of usable thread. And Gloriana, I believe this is a 12 strand. It looks to be a 12 strand. So maybe it would have had enough. Maybe not. So I could have fussy cut it. But that's like too close for comfort for me, if I'm totally honest. And if I was to go any further, then we get into the purples. I understand fantasy. And, you know, in autumn, all of the colors come out and it's all very beautiful, but purple. You know I love purple. So I was going to order a whole skein of Harvest Grape. And then that way, I could, if I had to fussy cut it, than I could. Not a big deal. But I didn't want to go through all that. I don't want to have to fussy cut a whole skein, and then I've got these little pieces of blue and purple silk, like, you know, maybe 5 or 6 inches. No. So I thought to order, let me see. So then my next trial was the Fiberlicious spun silks. And I meant to bring them, and I didn't. And I don't know where they are anymore. But, they're pretty reasonable, and they had a pack, and this was 2 years ago, so, you know, just take that as it is. They had a pack of autumn colors, and so I could see myself using the rest of the shades. Well, here's the thing about Fiberlicious spun silks. It is spun so tight, so fine, that there is a dimensional issue. It would not have looked right. It wouldn't sit right. I think that there are some parts up in here where, you know, it's supposed to give the effect that the leaves fell to the ground, and there was just like a textural difference. There was dimension to it, and it looked really weird. If I did 3 strands, then number one, it's fussing with 3 strands of spun silk, very tightly spun, very slick spun silk. But also that's even more dimension than 2 strands of Glorianas and Dinky Dyes and everything else that was in there. So I was like, this is not going to work. Not only that, but it's such a very different feel of a silk. So whatever, I'm done with that. So then I went back to the drawing board again, and I almost ordered several different Dinky Dyes and several different silks from other brands. Ultimately, I was like, you know what, if I'm having an issue with this textural difference, I'm just going to order another Gloriana. Glorianas are expensive. They are not a cheap silk by any stretch. I think this was $7. But I got a really great blend of colors. And so what I got is Gloriana 041 in Autumn Gold. There's the logo. And this is a color that I could also see myself using elsewhere, because it is just shades of autumn gold. Beautiful. So that's what I used, and it worked out nicely because it looks like leaves now, and so that's great. But wait, there's more. I'm going to insert this picture here so that you can see. I was down to the wire. I was down to the end, working on the barn here. And I will admit that I am not terribly frugal with threads. I tend to be a little bit wasteful sometimes. It's something that I'm working on because I am trying to use some higher end things, and the only way that I can afford to do that is if I pay attention, shall we say. This project in particular, I was doing a really great job with thread management, and I still ran out. Because I only had a finite amount of this thread available to me because I got the accessory pack. So the picture that I'm going to insert right here showcases the 4 inches of thread that I had left to do backstitch. And all I had to backstitch was these windows on the barn. You see how they are crossed? That's all I had left. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Now, I don't know if you guys are like this, but sometimes I just know my stash. Sometimes I just know if I have something or I don't. Sometimes, couldn't tell you. But I knew that I had this in my stash. Krennic Silk Mori 7124 in cream. The reason that I had this is because I was going to do another Freebie Victoria sampler last year for Stitch Mania, and this is one of the 2 threads called for. So that was kind of weird, but I just knew that I had it, and I knew where it was, which is even weirder. So I had to break into a skein to do backstitch. So that's kind of annoying. But I still spent far less on that accessory pack than I would have if I bought individual skeins for all, 22 of those silks? Yeah, I spent way less than that. So in the end, it's worth it. It was a little bit of a headache, especially with this harvest grape shenanigans, but it worked out okay. And it's done, and it's beautiful, and it's definitely like in the tops of my favorite finishes so far this year. I cannot wait to get it hung up. Yeah, so that's that. This stitch down here, this was a lot of fun. This is the reverse cushion stitch, and then there's a long vertical cross there in the middle. Yeah, that was pretty fun. That also uses a Gloriana in camouflage, I think. And then my signature. I should have done it in Harvest Grape. I should have from that piece, but I decided to use Harvest Gold. And what I did is I just cut off, I ended my reverse cushion stitch a little bit early and stuck that in there. So there's that. So that was really exciting to get that done on Sunday. It was more exciting than it should have been. More things happened than should have happened, but it was all right. So when we got home, I sat down, I finished my signature, and then I didn't stitch for the rest of the day. Emotions running high, finish hangover, whatever you want to call it, I just didn't stitch for the rest of the day. I spent the rest of the day really figuring out what my plans were for the rest of the month and if I had any other goals. And so I kind of played with the idea of getting another finish. I have a couple of other projects that need a few days and would be done. I toyed with the idea of pulling out Electra to try to get the black finished. Ultimately, what I decided was that Faces of Fairy, I needed to get a page finish on that puppy. So on Monday, I pulled out Faces of Fairy 201. And so you'll be seeing a preview here of what this looked like last time. I had 1,500 stitches left of the page. This is what she will look like finished. Seen her oodles of times over the months. And she is on my scroll bars, about to go back on the frame today. Or she's on the frame, about to go back on my stand today. Because that page is not done. So, you guys know, I have had grand success with Hades over the last months, particularly with this one, Speedy Stitcher. I've been doing really good with it. And I can't with this. I'm struggling so hard with this. It's moving so slow, and I'm unmotivated, and I think I'm burnt out. I think I'm burnt out on this project. I think I'm just kind of done. Which is a shame because I'm not done yet. I have quite a bit left to do before I'm actually done. But I'm just not feeling it right now. So, it could be a full coverage burnout. Sorry, I'm trying to get this to about there. Yeah. It could be full coverage burnout. It could be project burnout because, let's face it, this is basically the only Hade I've worked on since June. With minor deviations. So, I don't know. I guess I thought that I was going to be a lot further along by now than I am. Also, because I'm working on the swan now, and I'll finish the swan up with this page, what do I have left that's really interesting? Not much. I guess the top of her dress, the feathers in her dress, in the bodice of her dress, those are pretty. But, yeah. So I have just over 1,000 stitches left of the page. And it's going to go back on my stand today. This evening, we'll see how it goes. So there's that. But yesterday, it came off my stand because something else had to go on yesterday. Had to happen. And that is, of course, Carriage House Samplings, Halloween at Hawk Run Hollow. Oh, there we go. So, my fabric arrived yesterday. Wasn't supposed to get here till today. I took that as a sign, plus I didn't feel like working on faces anymore. So, fabric arrives. Now, I only ended up ordering a fat half. And that's because I talked about possibly ordering a full yard so that I would have fabric for both this as well as year that I plan on doing as my New Year, New Start. I don't know if that's my New Year, New Start anymore. We'll wait and see. And I just wanted to get a fat half to be a little bit more cost effective for the current moment. If I do decide that I'm going to do year, then I might change my idea on fabric, just all of the things. So, my fabric is a 40 count Country Mocha. I'm going to have to teach myself not to say vintage. By Zweigart. This is a printed fabric, so it's got the modeling on the front and nothing on the back. And I got to start. Now, I only stitched on the black because on Wednesdays we stitch black, which is fine because I got to start in. These stitches are so small. You forget, you don't stitch on 40 count for a while, and then you do, and you're like, whoa, them's tiny. But yeah, so there's my start. So I have 1 bat down, 21 to go. I counted, there's 22 bats in this project. Fun fact. And I subbed Anchor Black because it's what I do. And I'm really excited about it. I'm not doing the NPIs. Nope. Not unless I win the lottery, and so far that hasn't happened. So, yeah, I'll do the DMCs / Anchor. And I love it. I love it so much. So this is going to help us transition into plans a little bit. Faces of Fairy. I'm working on today and tomorrow. I have 1,000 stitches left. I doubt that I'm going to be able to get it done before we leave for Clemson because, like I said, I've got a lot of work to do today. And we're leaving early afternoon tomorrow. So, I doubt that I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to try to. If I do, fantastic. Because I'm feeling the burnout, I'm taking a break. And I am not going to stitch on Faces of Fairy 201 at all in October unless I am drawn to it, unless it calls to me. I don't see that happening because everything else that I have planned for October, I'm super excited about. So, what do I plan on working on in October? My entire October is Halloween themed. Yeah, I'm taking dark October stitching and I'm running away with it. So, here's what we've got. I've got 8 projects here, I think. 2 of which are new starts. Might have a 3rd start. I haven't decided yet if I'm ready to do that yet. But at least 2. Okay. With all of the projects that I have pulled, I have goals set. So I'm not scheduling them out or anything. I'm just going to stitch on them until I reach the goal. Or don't. Whatever I feel like. I'm taking October off and I'm just going to stitch what I feel like, however long I feel like. So, Halloween at Hawk Run Hollow, my goal is block 1. If I could finish block 1 in October, that would be awesome. My ultimate goal with this project is 1 block every 2 months. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with that, if I'm totally honest, because that's a lot. Each of these blocks, the standard ones, are 92 by 92 stitches. And some of them are full coverage. So that is effectively a Haid page. I think it's even a little bit more than a Haid page. Yeah, because a Haid page is 7840 and 92 by 92 is something like 8100 or something like that. Anyway, long and short is I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with a block every 2 months, but I'm going to try. And my ultimate goal is to get this block done in October. This one is not a full coverage block, so possible. Oh, one thing I didn't tell you guys about this. I tried to do the spider web. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. And then I ripped it out because the spider web is not intuitive. So that's going to take some finagling, but I need to get some more of the stitches done first before I can actually do the spider web. So it's kind of okay that it didn't work out. But yeah, that thing is complicated. It's not complicated, it's just a spider web, but the chart leads you to believe that, I don't know, it's not intuitive. Anyway, so that is project and goal number 1. If I get faces done before we leave for Clemson, for the Clemson game, I should emphasize that we're not going to Clemson. For the Clemson game, then I'm going to pull that out on Sunday. Okay, next project that I'm going to work on is Electra by Nora Corbett. And I didn't show this earlier because I knew I was showing it now. This is on 32 count milk chocolate linen by Whit Schultz. And let me fold it over on itself. So that's where I'm at. I've got a little bit left of the black to do, and so that's going to be my primary goal. If I get that done really quick, there's not a ton left to do. If I get that done, then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do her skin and her hat, and that's going to be my secondary October goal. Okay, next is a favorite. Preview here what this will look like finished. It is the horror movie Alphabet by Clouds Factory. This I am stitching on 32 count Lycan's Moon, aka Dried's Blood by Under the Sea Fabrics. And I'm so excited to work on this one. So that is where we currently stand. I've got Jack Attack, Freddy Krueger, Otis Driftwood, and Pinhead all finished up. And I have started on Ghostface and Beetlejuice. So here's my goal with this. My goal is to have 13 characters done. And if I work on that 13th character on Friday the 13th, that would be super cool. So I have 4 down, 9 to go. Yeah, I'd like to have half of it done by the end of October, so we'll see. We shall see. This would be a really good one to pull out for on Wednesdays we stitch black. I mean, I've got a lot of black going on because Halloween. But yeah, so that's coming out, and that fabric is looking super good. Oh, I'm so excited for that. Okay, this one has less of a goal, but I really like to pull it out. And this is Haunted House by Clouds Factory. Cool Haunted House by Juliet and Neil Nannies. Yeah, so that's what that one will look like finished. Maybe the tower. Maybe I'd like to get the tower done. Do I have the tower done? I haven't worked on this in a long time. This is going to be a focus piece in 2018 because I'm going to try to knock out my 2014 and 2015 projects next year, except for in this moment. This is on one of my very first Under the Sea Fabrics of the month. This is 32 count Belfast in Umbriel. And no, I don't have that top tower done. So yeah, I think my goal will be that top tower, maybe get a jump on the moon or the bats. But there it is currently. So much fun. Yeah, love that. So we'll see what I can get done on this project. And again, all of these I'm just going to be working on as my mood takes me. This one has a definitive goal, and it is defined by the stash. So this is the Tingles series by Lizzie Kate, and on the back here it shows you all of them together. This is also, I believe, on Milk Chocolate Linen by Witchelt. I think this might be a 28 count though. And I haven't worked on this since January. Aw, so cute. So my goal is going to be the other top border up here, and then the haunted block down here. And when I say that this is limited by my stash, this series is in 6 flip-its, so there are 2 small charts in every one of these, and this is the only one that I have so far. I haven't ordered any of the rest of them yet. But, so this block down here at the bottom is the one that I'm going to be working on, and I hope to get that done. This block I stitched in a day. It was a focus day, it was a Sunday, so, you know, is what it is. But this one, we'll see. We'll see what I can do. It doesn't look that bad, and I really love that font style for the word haunted. Yeah, that's fun. Oh, and Plague Doctor Death Mask. Not really a death mask, but Plague Doctor mask at least. Juliet Nifty on Annie's, I believe, is where I got that. Okay, next are the 2 planned new starts. If the third one happens, then I'll talk about it, but otherwise, yeah, we'll see. October by the Cricket Collection. Finally! Yeah, I am stoked about this, you guys. So excited. I can't decide where I'm starting. Because everything in me wants to start with the E, with the tombstone and the raven or crow. Yeah, but I also like starting over here, especially with the pumpkin over there. I don't know. So this I'll be starting. And this I am stitching on this fabric that I ordered for this piece. It is 32 count Belfast in Gingerbread by Picture This Plus. And that's showing up pretty accurate. It's so good. Love gingerbread. Yeah, that's really gorgeous. So, finally gonna start October. I was going to start this last year for Dark October, and I just never got my stuff together to do that. The other one fell victim to McKenna the Enabler. This one is also a maybe. I don't know that I'll be able to start it, and I'll explain why. So yesterday, I was doing some work watching Flosstube, and I decided to watch McKenna's latest, McKenna from Every Stitch Counts. And she shows this chart that Lila's Studios sent her. And it is Halloween Quaker. And I did a really, like, pat myself on the back, good job of not ordering it. I picked one of the two large Halloween designs that came out very close to each other. Despite the fact that I was watching Lila's progress on it on Instagram. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to pick one. So I picked Hawkwood Hollow. And then McKenna showed it, and I was like, crap. And then she mentioned that there is a Lila Studio Etsy store, and I am becoming somebody who likes to give directly to the designer, if I can, and that's not always the case, but directly to the vendor or the designer. And so I went onto her Etsy store, and before I could blink, I had ordered them both. And by them both, I mean the Halloween Quaker, and then one of the other ones, one of her smaller designs. She's got these seasonal ones with there's a basket of something in the center and 2 birds. They're seasonal. So I ordered the autumn one because, of course. But they're not here yet. And so then, excuse me, I was looking at the stitch count, and she calls for 40 count, and I'm like, well, I'm feeling some 40 count these days. So I went over to XJU Design, and I thought, it's time. It's time for me to finally see what everybody is talking about and to get some fabric. So there's that. And so that's really the limiting factor on if I'll be able to start this in October, because it's coming from Hungary. So that's a long ways to go, and so we'll see what happens. And I will show you guys what I ordered when they get here. Pretty excited, if I'm honest. Very excited to try out another fabric dyer, and a fabric dyer that I can buy directly from. I'm a big fan. So yeah, so like in the span of, I don't know, 15 minutes, McKenna was like, hey, look at this that I got. I got 2 Etsy notifications. Thank you for your order. Just, anyway, it's all good. So that might be happening, and then there's another one that I've had in my stash for a while that I'm kind of itching to start. We'll see if I've got fabric for it. So there's that. And so yeah, so that's it really for my plans for October. But I will of course keep you updated as we go along. Last topic for conversation is retail therapy, because like I said, I don't have knits or books this go around. And so I have just one thing that I purchased. Again, went into a fog. Somebody shared their finish of this piece somewhere on Facebook. I don't know who it was. I don't know which group it was, but I saw it, and then I went into a fog, and then it arrived on my doorstep. Not literally, but, and that is Give Thanks by the Drawn Thread. My love affair with the Drawn Thread continues. I'm obsessed. And like, not only is it gorgeous, not only do I absolutely love the colors in that, it's like a bajillion specialty stitches. Quick peek. Bunch of different kind of stitches. Is there a Vish? Oh no, it's a double cross eyelet. There's Jessica's in this. I'm so excited. So yeah, so this happened. It was out of stock on 123 Stitch, so I went on to, I believe, Lori at Mischievous Stitches, or Mischievous. Not sure. Anyway, she said the Bay of Evil. Yes, that is the Bay of Evil. And I found this from a seller actually in Virginia. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. I don't know why it makes it any different that it came from a Virginia seller, but it did, and it's beautiful. And no idea when I'm going to stitch it or what fabric to do it on. Let me see what they recommend. 32 count vintage country mocha. I have that. The bottom of my needle worker. Oh, this is beautiful, and it's 279 by 58, so it's very wide. I have a very wide piece. Oh my gosh, I already have this. I can already do this. That's amazing. I mean, you know, there's still all of that. Well, the big section is NPIs. This is dinky dyes. There's only 2 dinky dyes. Oh my gosh, this could be a start before too long. Okay, I shouldn't have done that. I don't have any room for any more new starts, but I really, I love that. Again, my love affair with the Drawn Thread. Yeah. Okay, so that is everything. I also got some boring things. I finally joined the Modern Rolled and got a Snag Nabbit because I am finding that I'm having some of those fuzzies slip up and having a hard time getting them back down underneath. And packs of needles because I burn needles, or I rust them, whatever you want to call it. And this is my remnant of 40 count vintage. or 40 count country mocha. So there's that. But that's really everything that I've got for you today. I just want to take a second to thank everybody so very much for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for liking. Thank you for your support of me and my channel and my crafty endeavors. To those who are curious about Thor, he is well. He is sleeping. And I hope to have him on my channel. I hope to have him on a video next week. I have to reevaluate where I'm filming for Thor to make an appearance. And with that, I will say happy stitching, have a great weekend, and always be kind.